As some of you may already know, I'm a pretty big movie scores fan. I'm a pretty big MCU fan, so when I heard they were doing an Infinity Saga live orchestra concert film experience, I was very much like, take my money. I'm going to read the blurb from the website to give you a flavour of what they're selling this thing as. Marvel Studios' The Infinity Saga Concert Experience is a new film concert that takes fans on an epic on-screen cinematic journey covering 23 films in one momentous concert event. Revisit the earliest days of Iron Man, Captain America and Thor as they discover their place in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, each accompanied by their own unforgettable heroic music. Now that sounds a little bit cheesy, a little bit salesy, but it's pretty much an accurate description of what you can expect. I saw this at Glasgow Royal Concert Hall. Now I've seen a couple of similar events there. I saw Star Wars live in concert there. I saw Jurassic Park there, or was that the Armadillo? I'm not sure. Anyway, I've seen a few live movie concert events and they've always been really good. Because I'm a big, movie fan and a big movie scores fan. And when you see the movie on screen, but with a live orchestra playing the score, it does add an extra goosebump-inducing element to the experience. This one is a little bit different in that it's not one single movie. It's essentially 23 movies. Condensed into a 2-hour show, or 2 1-hour halves. The first half is essentially a medley of scenes of the first 20 or so movies. So Iron Man right through to Black Panther, I would say. So 21-ish movies. It opens with a good 5 or 7 minutes worth of Iron Man. Then there's a good 5 to 7 minutes worth, I would say, of Captain America, the First Avenger. There's a bit of a Thor medley as well, but it's kind of all three Thor movies, mainly focused on the first one, but all three Thor movies are in that Thor medley. There's a fair chunk from the first Avengers movie. There's some Doctor Strange, some Ant-Man, some Spider-Man, a little bit of Black Panther as well. Actually, the Black Panther section felt like it was given more time than the rest. That was actually quite moving as well. It's not broken down evenly. So it's not like, they've taken the time and divided it evenly amongst 20 odd movies. Some movies and some characters are given a lot more screen time and sound time. The second half is much more focused on really just Infinity War and Endgame. Infinity War and Endgame. There's the vinyl soundtracks there. Much more focused on those movies. There's a little bit of Guardians of the Galaxy at the start of the second half. That's kind of the opener for the second half, both Volumes 1 and Volumes 2. There's also a bit of a Black Widow tribute, I would say, in there that kind of bridges the gap between the musical story of Infinity War and Endgame. But yeah, the second half is very much focused Infinity War and Endgame. And that's actually a good thing, and we'll get onto that in a minute. So that makes the second half much more like a traditional movie concert experience where you would watch the movie on a big screen with a live orchestra playing underneath. I have to say, whoever was in charge of the edit for this had a mammoth task on their hands. How do you condense 23 movies into one 2-hour concert? That's not an easy task. 23 movies, each movie averaging 2 hours, I would say. I'm not going to do the math, but that's a lot of movies to cut down. Choosing which scenes to use, which scenes to not use, that must have been difficult, to say the least. Obviously, you're going to focus on the score elements of each movie, on the scenes that make sense to use the score, and maybe, bring certain scenes forward, certain scenes back, that you can kind of like tie in with clever editing. And that's exactly what they do. As I said, it's not a complete chronological recap of the Infinity Saga. They play with the timeline and the release order of the movies so that it makes sense thematically, but musically, I suppose, if that makes sense. As well as that, blending together the work of multiple composers is no easy task. 23 movies in the Infinity Saga, Not quite 23 different composers, but, you know, a lot of different composers, from Ramin Djawadi on the original Iron Man, John Denby on Thor, which is an underrated score, in my opinion, Alan Silvestri on the first Cap movie and the first Avengers movie and Infinity War and Endgame, Ludwig Göransson on Black Panther, Michael Giacchino on Spider-Man, Henry Jackman did Winter Soldier, I'm sure, and Civil War, Tyler Bates on Doctor Strange. That's just to name but a few. So you've got all these world-class composers who've contributed their work to the Infinity Saga, blending the work of all these composers, weaving each unique thread into an overall cohesive tapestry of film music. That's a work of art in itself. And that's probably why they didn't go with a more simple, mathematically, chronologically even spread of, you know, just basically dividing the 23 movies by whatever runtime they had. It made sense to play with the timeline a little bit so that you can bring, like, you know, Black Panther forward in the timeline, bring Thor Ragnarok forward so that you can have like a 7-minute Thor sequence that covers all 3 Thor movies before you get to Civil War, you know, because technically, you know, Ragnarok takes place after Civil War, but in this concert movie, if I recall correctly, they show it not in that order. But yeah, it made sense that they did it that way from a musical kind of like character theme point of view. If you're thinking about going to see this concert movie, concert experience, you're probably an MCU fan, you're probably a film score fan. This is just going to make you an even bigger MCU fan and an even bigger movie scores fan. Standout moments for me, That's My Secret Cap, I'm Always Angry cue from the first Avengers movie, or, you know, the cue that kicks in just after that, just before the 360 shot of the OG 6 Avengers. Obviously, bearded Cap reveal at the train station in Infinity War. I think that's literally like the iconic piece of Avengers music. Portals in Endgame. It's one of the most like goosebump inducing, rousing film music moments, I think, of all time. My only criticism of the show, of the concert experience, is I don't think there was any Winter Soldier music in this. I may be wrong, but I didn't pick up on any Winter Soldier. And that's one of my favourite scores of the MCU. I think it's Henry Jackman who was the composer on that. It's a brilliant movie, but it's also a really good score. They didn't have any of that in this, I don't think. So that's the only one that I missed, to be honest. I'm sure there was others that were omitted, but I didn't miss them. That's the only one that I actually missed from this show. As I said, this is definitely one for the fans. If you imagine like the best, most high-end, most tightly edited YouTube supercut of the Infinity Saga, paired with a world-class orchestra, playing the music of world-class film composers, that kind of encapsulates what Marvel Studios' Infinity Saga concert experience is. I think the UK leg of the tour is now finished. At the time of recording this, there's just one more date in Edinburgh, and then I think it's off to France later on this year or maybe next year. If you can check it out whenever they're in your city, definitely check it out. I'll link to their website below. If you're a fan of the MCU, if you're a fan of live music and of film scores, you'll definitely be a fan of Marvel Studios' Infinity Saga concert film experience. I think that's what they call it. Anyway, that's us, folks. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you in the next video.